Hey people, welcome back to Steel Faith Overhaul for Total War Warhammer, where the Cult of Sigmar has received a huge update for the Empire roster. Disciples make up the bulk of the Sigmarite Order and serve under the watchful gaze of warrior priests. They enter battle with eager hearts, ready to defend mankind against the curse of vampirism, monstrous horrors, and demons of the warp. Nuln Ironsides are drawn from the guards and apprentices of the renowned Imperial Gunnery School, heavily armored and armed, wield master-wrought firearms that reflect the power and prestige of their patrons. Templar Witch Hunters are the state-sanctioned hunters of the Sigmarite Church and evoke terror in guilty and innocent alike. They root out evil wherever it hides among men. Heretic, mutant, and abominable undead must all be eradicated, even if it means hanging half a village. Volkmar the Grim, the Grand Theogonist of the Cult of Sigmar, astride his resplendent war altar, is the figurehead and spiritual bedrock of the Sigmarite Church. Wherever he goes, the flagellants march, crazed fanatics muttering portents of doom and the end of all things who meet their deaths unflinchingly and in massive numbers. They've lost all hope for this dying world, but their unbreakable resolve and reckless abandon will be much needed in the trials to come. The Imperial Guard are elite guardsmen equipped with armor-piercing halberds, selected only from a small pool of battle-hardened warriors who have seen frontline combat and demonstrated exceptional fighting skill. They are amongst the finest troops any Imperial province can field. And the Knights Panther are a secular order of knights dedicated to the eradication of mutants and chaos worshippers alike, as well as upholding the racial integrity of the Empire as a whole. Their crusades into Araby 2,000 years ago imparted on them a symbolic interest in exotic animal fur, which their order use to distinguish themselves on the battlefield. So before we jump into the multiplayer battle, I want to quickly highlight some of the changes that came in the Steel Faith Overhaul patch. There are a pretty decent amount of new units that I think are going to get people pretty excited. So this patch was basically a Cult of Sigmar update, which added a lot of units that kind of fit that theme for the Empire, so we'll go through some of those changes now. For instance, the General of the Empire, when you bring him dismounted, without a griffin or a barded warhorse or anything, he now gets a ranged option with a pistol that has pretty substantial armor piercing and missile damage in general, high weapon strength, so you're kind of encouraged a little bit to bring him cheaply and bring him on foot. So you'll give up some of that mobility but get that ranged alternative. For the Witch Hunters, they are substantially better than they were in vanilla. They're now actually somewhat useful. They certainly are not used ever in regular multiplayer on vanilla, but they definitely have a role here to play. So they have very high missile damage. They do have a bonus versus large on their weapon strength. They deal magic damage, and they have a lot of ammunition. So pretty good support unit, and especially alongside Accuse, which again can DPS down single target entities. Pretty decent support hero. So for the Sigmarite Disciples, these are kind of guys that you don't really want to form the bulk of your battle line, but are a very good support unit. So they have decent armor, a good missile block chance, they deal magic damage and armor piercing, and they have a ability called Shield of Faith, which warrior priests also share with them, but it's a different ability for them. So for these guys, the Sigmarite Disciples, it gives them plus 10% physical resistance and immune to psychology in an AoE, so that'll work for all units around in a 35 meter radius, which is pretty decent. So a very decent support unit that fits that Cult of Sigmar theme pretty well. The Imperial Guard are a halberd unit, elite one, very expensive to field. They have armor piercing and bonus versus large, as you'd expect, 115 armor, charge defense against all, and they have an ability called Last Stand, which gives them 10% physical resistance, 10% missile resistance, and makes them unbreakable. So that's pretty strong, but it only kicks in when their HP drops below 20%, or when their leadership is, it gets disabled when their leadership is higher than 50%. So that stuff only kicks in when they're very close to dying. So the Nuln Ironsides are also from the lore. They deal very good armor piercing damage, and they kind of have repeating handguns, so decent range, decent missile damage, but they take a long time to reload once they're done with their first volleys, just as you'd expect a repeater handgun to do. So they'll have a decent, very quick clip to their shots. Like they'll shoot very quickly, and then they'll have to reload, and that reload will take a pretty substantial amount of time. The Witch Hunter Retinue are probably the coolest unit added in this. They are a great archer unit. So only 12 guys in a unit on ultra unit sizes, but they are monster killers, and they can kill cav and stuff really easily. They have some really nice tools to choose from. So probably the thing that separates them the most is the Prayer of Binding. It's a hex basically functions like Net of Ammontok, which, yeah, I know a lot of people are going to be annoyed that Empire is getting another option in terms of just freezing a unit in place, and I kind of agree with that assessment. I just played a battle today where I played against a Templehof Luminarch and Net of Ammontox, and you imagine some Witch Hunter Retinue on top of that could get incredibly annoying. But I think in terms of this unit operating by itself, it's really cool that they have this. It makes them a very viable archer unit. It freezes a unit in place and reduces their damage resistance by 5, and it works for 12 seconds. Not a massive amount of time, but they also cost an obscene amount of money for an archer unit, and they can get shut down and tied down very easily. So yeah, they're a lot tankier than your typical archer unit, but because they're only 12 in a unit, they're just going to get tied up very easily and not be able to fire once that happens. So they do magic damage. They have a bonus versus large in melee, and they have a substantial bonus versus large. Let's see what it is here, of 15 when they're firing in with their magical crossbows. So decent range, good armor, kind of tanky for an archer unit, but definitely one of those ones that can be tied down relatively easily. But if you don't deal with them, they're gonna put the hurt on you. Again, almost 1,500 gold though, so it'll be interesting to see where the balance goes around with that unit. Might not be at a perfect spot, but definitely a very fun unit to use. So right here, Knights Panther have a bonus versus infantry and armor piercing. You know them from the lore. They are some of the most devout chaos destroyers. They really want, they're secular order. They're not tied to the Cult of Sigmar, but they're pretty powerful with a 8 bonus versus infantry. Not so great against enemy cav though, so you definitely want to pick your targets with these guys and go for enemy infantry. For Bretonia, which is the other thing I'm going to focus on for right now, there were a bunch of multiplayer changes in general for most of the factions. Chaos has been buffed pretty substantially. They have a lot more and better units. Their prices were changed a bit because they were a little bit too expensive beforehand in vanilla Steel Faith or in the previous patches. But yeah, I'm not going to cover all those changes right now. For Bretonia though, they did get 3 new units, and they got a substantial change to the Fey Enchantress. So Fey Enchantress now has access to the Lore of Heavens and the Lore of Life, which should make a lot of people very happy. So you can pick and choose whichever spells you want for her there, and that can make her a very powerful caster, even more powerful than she already is in vanilla. She's definitely one of the best legendary lords in vanilla multiplayer, and that's probably true in Steel Faith as well because of her Mist of the Lady and her bound spells with Common of Cassandora, which is just brutal in Steel Faith. Men-at-Arms with maces are a new unit, so a pretty low-tier infantry unit that has armor piercing. Not very expensive to field, but they're going to rout pretty easily. You definitely want to bring a Grail Reliquary to keep them in the fight if you don't want them running for the hills. And then melee tournament knights are interesting. Some people might not be the happiest with that just because they think that Bretonia doesn't deserve to have a mainline infantry unit, but I will say they have half strength. They have half the men in the unit of men-at-arms or any of the peasant units, and I wouldn't say they're a support unit, but it's hard to field them as a main line. There just aren't very many of them, and it's still kind of themey. Like, yes, I realize that nobles are typically going to be mounted up in Bretonia, but I think it's a pretty cool unit, and they have actually a pretty cool ability here too called Impetuous Bravery. It gets disabled if their leadership is lower than 50%, but it gives them +2 charge resistance. That sounds... I don't know what +2 charge resistance actually means, to be honest. I don't know if that's a high value or not, but it gives them 19% charge speed, +12% charge bonus, and immune to psychology. So they're pretty decent in a melee grind. Don't have a bonus versus infantry or a lot of armor piercing or anything, but they've got swords. They have a very cool looking model, and I'll definitely be showing them off sometime pretty soon here. And the Men-at-Arms Crossbowmen just gives you another ranged option. 160 range, so pretty similar to a lot of the other crossbows in the game. And yeah, so that's just the 3 of the new Bretonia units that got added. So with all that out of the way, we're going to go in and watch the Cult of Sigmar fight off against a big chaos stack. So I'll see you on the battlefield. Here we are on the battlefield, and the Cult of Sigmar is about to feel the full weight of a chaos invasion led by a Chaos Lord and a Lord of Change. Nuln Ironsides, state troops, and the disciples of the Sigmarite Church will trade their lives if it means the safety of their loved ones and victory against this evil. Volkmar the Grim is a monster in Steel Faith Overhaul because the Banishment Vortex is legit, and there's no regen cap, which is pretty awesome. And you're rocking with that Jade Griffin goodness. Templehoff Luminarch spewing arcane fire, about to smack a Shaggoth in the face. But frankly, not the best choice on ultra unit size, because the damage doesn't scale quite as well on those larger HP pools. Forsaken, getting shish kebabbed on the business end of those magical crossbows from the Witch Hunter Retinue. Already taken a lot of fire in the early stages of this battle, being dismembered by the forces of those shots. So we'll be doing some early skirmishing fire with them, and the Chaos Army is moving up. But here come the War Chariots from the flank, and I was a little bit too far up with my Vanguard deployed Witch Hunter Retinue, who will take a charge up the ass here. Not a good look for them, not going to be great, but actually not doing a whole lot of damage. I think they actually have some physical resistance too, which I'm not sure I talked about. I think they have like 10 or 15% physical resist. Purple Son of Xarius smacking Sigmarite Disciples right in the center of their formation, not actually killing any models there. But let's take a look at their HP pool, already down to half strength. Barely lost anybody, if they lost anybody, but they lost a lot of HP there. And thankfully, I didn't take too much damage on my Witch Hunter Disciples, but those chariots will still be a problem for my army for sure. I have a very low number army here. Cult of Sigmar armies are very expensive to field. Can be pretty powerful. Knights Panther charging in, trying to tie down those chariots. They don't have a bonus versus large, so killing them will be tough. But I am backed up by the Imperial Guard, who are running in and trying to tie down and kill off all these large units on the field. Chaos Knights on the flanks, lots of chariots, Sartorial, just a massive amount of cav and large units trying to come in here. Chaos Trolls as well. Looks like the Banishment Vortex going off from the Lore of Light, and that is jibbing a whole bunch of Chaos Warriors and Forsaken, as Lore of Metal spells, Plague of Rust getting popped down in that engagement. And yeah, that was a really good Vortex. I killed a ton of Chaos Warriors there, did a ton of HP damage, but we're kind of being overwhelmed here in the early stages of the game. Templehoff Luminarch, Chaos Dragon, Exalted, or not Exalted Hero, Death Sorcerer, and a Feral Manticore, all landing on top of that Luminarch, and not going to get away there. Took a ton of damage from those charges, and that Luminarch absolutely did not pay for it, so massive waste of money this early in the game. Really wasn't supported quite as well as it probably should have been. So Chaos Trolls pouring in from the flanks, Marauders waiting in, and the Chaos Chariots as well. Volkmar is surrounded here, but with his damage resistance buffs and the Grand Shield of Faith, might be able to keep them in the fight. These Flagellants will not break. They are unbreakable, of course, and all my units are extremely high morale, but we are taking a lot of damage in the early stages here, and definitely kind of getting overrun. Chaos Dragons landing in the back lines on top of some handgunners and Nuln Ironsides, spewing some Zinchi Flame, and they'll all be eviscerated if they don't get some support soon. High mobility of these Chaos armies is a serious problem right now. Both myself and my ally are having some trouble protecting our back lines from all these high-tier cav and flyers on the field. But I am winning on the flank, where my Knights Panther and Elite Halberds have already slaughtered a full unit of Chaos Knights and taken control of the right side of this battlefield. And my Knights Panther will get a nice charge into those Chaos Chariots, and with their high attack values, will be able to take them down. Remnants of those Chaos Knights are still actually coming back to the fight, but they initially routed. Not much HP left in this Exalted Hero on a Manticore. Just another flyer on the field, hunting down my Witch Hunter Disciples, but I will pin him and get some really nice shots, and you can see his damage. Look at all that work there. I think their missile damage is like 250 per pop. They can do a lot of work for you shooting into single entities. They are monster killers, so that Exalted Hero has to be careful. But Volkmar the Grim is wading into the thick of the fighting where he is best, and he will do some serious work for you if you don't dedicate enough troops to taking him down if you're on the other side of the battle. These Chaos Warriors are going to chew through these halberds. I think it was a good choice to bring this many halberds, because it's giving him some options against all these large units, and the armor piercing will still help against the Chaos Warriors, but they're definitely not going to beat them one-on-one in melee. And Sartorial Zinchi Lightning in the middle of the engagement here. Witch Hunter underneath his gigantic shadow, trying to take him down with his bonus versus large attacks, and another Banishment Vortex going off as Volkmar tries to deal with these overwhelming numbers of Exalted Heroes and Chaos Warriors. Wish that Vortex had stayed a little bit on target, a little bit longer, but still doing some pretty decent work for me on the left flank and holding it down. I've lost most of my infantry at this point. Nuln Ironsides really didn't have enough opportunity to pay for themselves there, as the armored trolls and those Chaos Chariots just rolled through the line and ran over them. But the Witch Hunters are still in the fight, wading into melee. And if I continue to pop a Q's on Sartorial, even against his magic resist, might be able to take him down. He's at half HP. He is definitely the most important target on the field. We'll need to kill him if we want to turn this battle back in our favor. Not looking great for us at the moment, but things can change on a dime here, especially when a Lord goes down, and we're trying our best to deal with this Chaos Lord. Oh wow, that was a crazy attack. Look at that. So many of them knocked down by that AoE. And as I've mentioned before, dragons are way more impactful and scary in Steel Faith, but way more expensive to field as well. It's a good shot from the Temple of Luminarch in there, and he's definitely dropping pretty low HP. But over here, it is a tough fight. We are locked in a very close battle as the Witch Hunter fires into Sartorial, and Volkmar still riding around in that War Chariot, trying his best to turn things in our favor. Chaos Knights dropping, armored trolls, or regular trolls, rather Chaos Trolls are charging through, trying to tie him down and prevent that massive 550 damage missile pistol from firing in. Chaos Warhounds imbuing some poison on Volkmar, which he won't enjoy. But you can see he's still almost full HP after wading into melee multiple times. That's where that regen is really helping him out. But our left flank has completely crumbled. Not good. Not looking good over there at all. Cult of Sigmar still trying to stand strong here in the face of Chaos Trolls marching through. But I do have some halberds. Dealing with them, that bonus versus large will help. But their regen is massive. Chaos Trolls have a gigantic regen, and they're also a lot bigger than they are in vanilla as well. Pretty terrifying to deal with. Some nice shots from the Outriders into Sartorial, but he does have that very high missile resistance. I think it's like 75 or something. And so with the Witch Hunter and everyone firing in, doing a little bit of chip damage there, but not sure it's quite enough to kill him. He's still got some HP left. And we are surrounded. But Volkmar, remember, he has that bounce spell. If they blob up around him, he could definitely turn things in our favor. The Witch Hunter Retinue, surrounded by these Chaos Trolls, now getting jibbed, getting eaten alive by these Exalted heroes who are also monstrous. They sunder armor in the mod now, and I will pin those trolls down so they can't chase down my Witch Hunter Retinue, but it's a grind now. Those aspiring champions are carving a path of red ruin through my men. Imperial Guard getting close to that point where Last Stand kicks in and they become unbreakable and get some additional physical resistance. Volkmar calling down some grand battle prayers, rallying the Cult of Sigmar to his side, and Sartorial the Everwatcher. Sync kill time, boys! Watch out, watch out, watch out! Or KO out of nowhere! Boom! That was awesome, dude. I love that animation so much. That is so cool to watch. Don't get to see that one very often. When you see it, so satisfying. Sartorial is gonna pancake that guy into red oblivion. That was awesome. Halberd's coming in to reinforce as well. Volkmar engaging here, trying to hunt down the big bird. I really want to kill him. He's so low, only a couple of hits left. Plague of Rust coming down, or maybe Transmutation of Blood, not 100% sure. But the War Chariot chasing down Sartorial, but he's fast and he's getting away, and Volkmar is exhausted, so his movement speed is tiny. Chaos Troll charging in, surrounding him, and here comes the Chaos Lord. And this is looking really bleak. Can Volkmar pull something out of the bag here and slaughter this Chaos Lord? Another Banishment Vortex going off. There is some routing on the Chaos line, but those Chaos Trolls will be tough to deal with, and that Vortex is going to do next to nothing to them. Look at how gigantic those Exalted heroes are, or the Aspiring Champions rather. Just slaughtering everything in their path. And an awesome look as the Grand Battle Prayers are called down, and the Chaos Lord and the Tzeentch Chaos Dragon land on top of the War Altar. And now Volkmar has nowhere left to run with his Warrior Priest in tow. It is time for them to make their last stand and engage this foul beast from the north. Volkmar, Jade Griffin, and his Warhammers of Sigmar up against a gigantic dragon. And he's actually doing really well. He's actually doing quite a bit of damage to this Chaos Lord right now. HP dropping precipitously at this point. Only 2k HP left. Volkmar not looking too great either, but he does have the regeneration. Getting some really good attacks in. Chaos Lord's HP continuing to drop. Can he bring him down? We're not going to win the battle at this point, but if we kill the Chaos Lord, there's going to be a moral victory there at least. Dragon Ogre Shaggoth coming in from the flank. Boring. Should have let him duel. And Volkmar will go down. Smashed into oblivion and hitting the deck hard there. War Altar destroyed, and Volkmar is dead. So Cult of Sigmar tried their best there. Best was not good enough. They just lost the Grand Theogenist. That is not ideal. And a handful of unbreakable Imperial Guard make their stand, but that will be the end of the battle. A valiant defeat. Killed a lot of Chaos Warriors there, but in the end, the mobility and all those infantry, the rush armies, were just too much to handle. So I don't know where exactly these Cult of Sigmar themed army builds will be in terms of multiplayer viability compared to the rest of the Empire. Might want to just work in a couple units here and there and maybe not go for a full themed build if you want to go super competitive, but I'm not sure. I've played one game against vampire counts with this exact same build effectively and did really well. The Prayer of Binding against their Blood Knights was fantastic, and I slaughtered a bunch of Graveguard with the Witch Hunter Retinue, so it can be good. I think in this one, we just kind of got overwhelmed by the sheer strength of the Chaos Rush armies and all the mobility that they had. But Volkmar and Gelt, they both did Volkmar got almost 300 kills. He did work for me. By the way, Steel Faith is opening a multiplayer Steam group and Discord. So if you guys want to start practicing and playing some Steel Faith games, that's going to be a great way to join up and play some games there. I hope you guys enjoyed this game. Definitely a fun one, and enjoy the mod. I think it's a lot of fun. I'll talk to you guys later. Any Pride signing out for now.